Welcome viewers and listeners to another episode of Blighty Talks Bricks. My guest today is somebody I don't know. We've only actually spoken briefly of about 10 minutes on the telephone, so I'm super excited because the lady I've got today is, I could tell from the conversation we had, she's got lots of lovely stories to tell us. And I also get this feeling, having just met her, that she's matches what we get on this podcast, that she's a lovely human being. So I'm really excited to introduce Samantha Pope. Let me get this right, because this is quite a long title you've got here.
Okay.
Founder and creator director of Samantha Pope Interior Architecture, Interior Design and Turnkey Styling. That must make you a very busy lady.
Just Samantha Pope Interiors might be best. But yeah, it just summarises sort of the extent of services that we cover. So it's not just the sort of end interior design sort of elements.
Well, we'll get into that, because I want to ask you some questions. But when we was chatting on the telephone the other day, I was trying to find something that you and I have got in common. And you're going to laugh when I say this, but believe it or not, we have running in common. I used to run.
Yeah.
And I know you like your running.
Yeah.
I know it's something you mentioned, that it's something that helps your clarity of mind and keeps you on top of your game, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. Exercise, I need it in my life. I'm no expert, but I do like to run. I've got a dog that needs a lot of exercise as well, so that helps.
What kind of dog?
She's a pointer, German short-haired pointer.
Yeah.
And we've got the woods right on the doorstep, so I like to go there every morning.
And are you one of these people, when I see you running, you've got this super obedient dog that's actually by your side?
She's good. She's a good girl, but she does. She's not by my side all the time. She sort of wanders off, but she's always got me in her eyesight, so she won't go off too far.
Right.
But she's a proper off-lead dog.
Well, if I took my lab out, and she's a bit old to go running now, but within 10 yards I would have lost her, and she'll wander back to the house sort of 45, 50 minutes later.
No, she's a bit of a wuss, really. She doesn't like to. She doesn't want to stay out of my eyesight for too much.
So how often do you run?
It will change from week to week, but I do try 2 or 3 times a week at the moment. Just I'm so busy with work. If I can at the weekends, I'll squeeze it in as well, but it has to fit in around my children's activities. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I remember that back in the day.
Yeah.
If you don't get a run in, do you find that it leaves you feeling a little bit sort of guilty?
I try not to, but it used to. Yeah. I think if I can't run, I'll just make sure I walk as much as I can. So I'll make sure I go on a long dog walk and things like that. It's just, I try not to beat myself up too much. Just in the past, I used to, though. I used to sort of get a bit.
Yeah, I used to run marathons. Marathons. I run 6 marathons and lots of half marathons. And I found that I started having a bit of a guilt complex, especially if I'd been out and had a few beers. I wasn't one of these people that, watch my diet or anything, as you can see. But I used to have a little bit of guilt if I didn't. And I look back on that and I wish I didn't have that, because if you miss a run, it's not the end of the world.
No.
I used to beat myself up about it, for sure.
Yeah, and I did. I used to, but I've realised now that, I can make up for it the next day. Yeah. I'm not going to beat myself up. My kids do a lot. Like, they're very sporty as well. So at the weekend, sometimes my mornings
taken up
are watching their football.
Rugby.
both my kids play football. I've got a son and a daughter, and they're both into football. And my daughter does gymnastics. So there's a lot that I want to make sure I'm there to watch their.
That's it. Well, they grow up very quickly.
They do.
And it does really go quickly, but you'll find that. Well, you're obviously doing a great job. So how did you get into interior design?
Okay, so I'm not one of these people that, I just fell into it, or it was by mistake. From a young age, I always knew that I wanted to do interior design.
From a young age?
From about the age of 11, Like when I started secondary school, and you had to fill out this form, and the teachers asked you, what do you want to be when you're older? And I remember filling in this form to say, oh, I want to be an interior designer, blah, blah, blah. But when I look back, on reflection, I think it's probably because my dad used to teach upholstery at the London College of Furniture at the time.
Oh, did he?
It's not there anymore. And I remember he used to take me to work with him sometimes, and I become quite obsessed with those big A1 drawing boards, and you had the furniture designers have their sort of 3D drawings, and I used to sort of fantasize and sit there and imagine that I was like doing all of the furniture designs. So I think it stemmed from that, really. And yeah.
So once you're 11, you're playing that make-believe game that you're dad's assistant, you're doing your bits and pieces. Did you know then what you needed to do from a qualification point of view?
Yeah, so I did know that once I finished school, I wanted to go and study at university. So I studied interior architecture and design.
Right.
And yeah, so I haven't got one of those stories, where you're like, oh, or change a career. A lot of people sort of fall into this career because they've gone down one route and then realise they had a love for interiors, but and then sort of change jobs. But I've just known from day one, I love what I do.
It's an interesting thing because, I don't know, I must have been involved in selling many thousand new homes now over the years, 40 years of selling new property. So there's quite a lot of properties I've been involved in selling, and most of them, if not all of them, are on new developments. And you'll appreciate that I've seen lots of show apartments and show houses, and it's one of the things that the public just get absolutely caught into. And on all of our developments, it's always the show apartment or the show house that gets sold first. So I've seen lots. Yeah. It always amazes me that even if people don't like the colours, they still actually want to buy. We can always sell the show apartment or the show house first. And so I've seen some amazing designs. I've seen some shockers. And I know that people, I think we probably all think we've got the best apartment or the best house inside, don't we? We all think we've done it the right way. But there are some tricks, aren't there? There are some sort of secrets, really, that make property look good, spaces look bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that come into your architecture part of the qualification you did, or is that not where that would go?
Yeah, so what I wanted to make sure I knew is I wanted an understanding more of the bones of the structure of a building. So I didn't want to just go in and furnish properties. Yep. I wanted to come in at a much earlier start and have a viewpoint on the actual flow and the space planning and more of an understanding of how the property is actually constructed. So I'd done the degree, but then my first 3 to 4 years were in an architectural company.
Oh, was it?
So I learnt a lot from that. I would go on building sites, and I remember my first day on site, and I had to climb up scaffolding 5 stories onto the roof of this building, and but it was just so that we could see the steel installation, and you just really understanding that. Yeah. So when I'm designing now, because I have that understanding, I know that I'm making decisions that I know are actually doable.
When you get what do you call it, an instruction, when somebody comes and a client comes along, do they give you a brief, or have you actually had briefs in the past where you think this is not going to look good? Somebody's got an idea, they want something done, and you're thinking, wow, this isn't going to work, this is going to look terrible.
Yeah, especially for private clients. Yeah. The brief is really important, because you really do have to you have to ask questions that I think they're not typically expecting. because they might say, I love this because my friends have got this, or I've seen this on telly or in the magazine. And actually, I need to understand more about what's their lifestyle like. You know, if I'm trying to understand sort of the kitchen design, I'll be asking who's the main cook, you know.
Right, okay, you'll go into that detail.
Yeah, even down to, are you left-handed or right-handed, you know, things like that. Because it's really important that a space functions from a practical point of view, because there's no point in having a space that, this looks so lovely, but it just doesn't suit them on a practical level.
And how do you find people give you budgets as well?
Yeah.
Does that make a challenge because you think, really, this is not going to work with this kind of budget, or?
Yeah, I always insist on understanding what the budget is before I proceed with any design, because it gives you a better understanding of how detailed you're going to really push this. You know, whether it's, for example, if it's a kitchen, you'll get more of an understanding of whether it's going to be more of a bespoke budget or sort of off-the-shelf type kitchen layout. So it really does give you an understanding of what suppliers you'd use, whether you're going to design bespoke furniture pieces. So, the budget is really important, because what you don't want to do is go solely on their brief, design to their brief, and then you cost it, and then
make it happen.
No. And I've learnt that through mistakes.
Right.
You know, I've learnt my own lessons. So often people do have champagne taste and lemonade money.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I noticed you looked at me really deep into the eye then, so you must know me.
I've learnt that through experience. So, yeah.
In terms of interior design, it's at the property industry is male dominated. Do you find that in the interior design world, most of the interior designers I've come across are ladies and females? Do you find that, or is there you're finding more men are involved in it now?
I do think there are more men now. But yeah, it is typically, the construction industry especially, is typically more male orientated, but I think that's what I like about it. I actually enjoy, not so much now, but when I was younger, in my early 20s, and especially working at the architectural company, and it's doing all my first site visits, and actually being there, and you're having to, like, you're designing and giving the information to these people, to the men on site, and I've really enjoyed being able to just explain the details and realise that most of them just accept, you know, not all of them sort of look down on you. And
that leads me nicely into my next question. How have you found it being a female in a male-dominated industry? Troublesome, challenge. I mean, we hear this a lot. We're in a very different world now. I don't fit into the woke world. There's lots of things I see that I don't agree with. In sales, which is predominantly what I've done over the years, I've worked in the main with females. I think I've mentioned this in a previous podcast, that the majority of the people that have worked in my business are females. We're selling property. It's a 7-day business. Most of the site reps that have worked for me over the years have been ladies, and even sales directors have been mainly female. And I've really enjoyed. I love working with women. I find working with women is easier than working with men. But do you find that you've come up at? Have you had obstacles, or is it you've not seen it that way?
Yeah, there's been a few. I think it does depend on your personality as well. Yeah. You know, it's how are you going to take. I let a lot of things go over my head. You know, there's been times when I've attended site, and I think they're not expecting me to be as technical minded as I am.
Which gets you a star, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because they know that they're actually dealing with someone that understands what's going on.
Yeah. And there's been a couple of times where it's like I feel like they're testing me. And it's sort of like, okay, I've thrown back the answer. It's sort of like, okay, now they understand that I'm not just here to plump cushions.
And is that something that we've got wrong now, that, you know, you're saying that you've had some challenges, but you've done the hard work, you've done the groundwork, and that happens with guys on site as well. You know, I've seen it where you've got an apprentice electrician's come on and I'm walking around and, you know, he's getting run around all over the shop because that's the way of learning. Have we become a little bit soft in our way now and we take umbrage? You know, if anyone sort of shouts at us, it's like we're shocked and you can't shout at me. And are we a bit softer?
I think probably, but I think people just be more aware that there's a different way of doing things now. I think I'm just thinking back to something my husband said, and I can't believe I'm even going to bring football into the subject.
I'm glad you're bringing football in, as long as you get the right colour and the right team.
Yeah, it's all right. We're all Arsenal.
Okay, that's cool with me. We can crack on.
But my husband, he was always a semi-professional footballer, so he is now a football coach. He coaches my son's team, but his way of dealing with the kids is a lot different to how he was spoken to.
Absolutely.
But he's got his method, and it's more nurturing.
Are you finding that with your smaller developers that they come to you to talk to you about a job? They want you to do some interior design for them, and yet that keeps getting put back and back and back because of planning delays?
Oh, God. The whole planning system, it's just a bit of a shambles, to be honest. It's not fun dealing with the planning departments at all. I feel since COVID, they're just a lot slower.
It must be a nightmare for you running a business. You've got a series of jobs on your board going back.
Well, our jobs do get put on hold because of the lengthy planning process. And what I find frustrating is now, and this has been since COVID, they won't liaise with you.
Won't talk to you, will they?
No, and I've been trying to liaise with a particular project, the planning officer, and we've been emailing each other, but then there's no contact, there's no email, there's no telephone number. So I cannot find a contact phone number. You go on their websites, they don't give out the phone numbers. They make it really hard to even contact them. So it's a big hassle when you're dealing with the planning department. And
it's crazy, isn't it? We're in this world today where text messages, WhatsApp, mobile phones. I mean, I was in a day where we used to have a secretary that would sit at a typewriter all day long and crash out letters. I mean, we used to have a franking machine. We go down. We have emails. It makes it so much easier. Yeah, actually, the real honest truth is we're talking less. We hide behind. The amount of times in my office I talk to people and I say, what have we done with that challenge? Oh, well, I've emailed so-and-so. Yeah. Okay, so what have we done? And they look at me as I'm an alien. Well, I've emailed. Yeah, no, but we haven't got a resolution. We haven't dealt with a challenge. Yeah, but I've emailed. It just seems now that we're scared to actually talk.
It's that face-to-face contact. I think a lot of people are just, especially the younger generations, it's so they're being brought up in this digital world. And they're used to playing, like even with my kids, they play on the computer with their friends. Yeah. They're playing on the a game together, but they're not in the room together. So back in, before all of this, in my days, you had face-to-face contact, and you would pick up the phone or meet people to do business, or now you don't have to do that. You can drop an email or do a Zoom call.
So how do you see your business going? Do you think that you've got to change the way you work and operate because of these challenges that are coming up?
We've had to adjust a lot. I know you're not keen on working from home, but I think in my line of business, I think having the mix of both is okay. we're a deadline-driven business. So as long as the deadlines are met, you know, I don't mind if you're not working 9 to 5, but let's just make sure we meet these deadlines, you know. So, so I and it works for me personally because I can juggle, you know, family as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, a lot of it is adjusting to all the technology. You know, a lot of people are quite happy to still do Zoom calls and team meetings.
I think that's I've got so many pet hates. It's unreal. I'm going to get told off soon. But Zoom calls for me are. I get it if somebody's in the other part. You know, if somebody's in Scotland and you're in Exeter, I get it. But to have a Zoom call when you don't need to, and the work from home bit, work from home has always been around. And there's always been people that have run very successful businesses from working from home. I think where we've got to get that line right is there's certain industries, there's certain things you can't do from home.
Yeah.
For example, you can't teach kids from home.
Yeah.
So you can't actually not every kid in this country, contrary to what people believe, has got a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Not every kid in this country, contrary to what people believe, has got a mobile phone.
Yeah.
You can't teach kids on Zoom.
Yeah.
The civil service has to understand that it needs to be in a community building where its residents, its people that effectively pay their salaries need to go to deal with things like refuse, to deal with things like social services, to deal with things like planning departments. So I'm not against it. I'm against it being used wrongly.
Yeah, and I think COVID has made people more aware that it's possible to have that mix, but having worked from home a lot, you miss that social interaction. So I've realised that actually having the balance is the best thing for me.
I think the balance, I mean, my business, we run you can work 1 day a week from home.
Yeah.
And I get that. I think there's times when if I've got a report to do, and if I'm in the office, understandably I'm going to get, I wouldn't say bothered, but people are going to come to me with questions. And sometimes I need that 3-4 hours where I'm going to be quiet. So I get it. I just think that, again, it's about, I think people are skiving. I think people are using it to their advantage. I'd be right in saying that if I looked on LinkedIn, that your husband is running a marathon.
Yes, he is.
How's his training going?
Just starting.
Oh, is it?
Well, he had a 2nd degree tear on his thigh. Yeah. So that was October time, and he's had to wait all this time. He's been waiting for it to heal. So it was only last week that he's been able to gradually.
What's his? Because he's doing the London Marathon.
He's doing the London Marathon because he's doing it. He's taken his late brother's place.
Right.
So his brother got 2 places on the marathon, and we didn't know until a month after he passed. So he's now doing it in his honour. How
old was his brother?
He was only 32.
Right, and how did he pass away?
A road accident. Right. Yeah, so it was a tough year last year for us as a family. I also lost my sister.
In the same year?
In the same year, 3 months before, yeah.
Wow. So you lost your sister?
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, your husband lost his brother?
Yeah.
And how old was your sister?
48. That was a tough year, but I like to think, I don't want to say this in the wrong way, but I like to try and see challenges differently.
Yep.
So it was a very challenging year last year. I've grown a lot of resilience from all the challenges of last year. I've learned a lot in myself as well. But this is where, the whole well-being thing comes into, like, my work. Well-being in interiors is a topic that I think is absolutely crucial. But it's through my own experience with my family and, you know, my sisters. Her drink, the problem wasn't alcohol. The problem was, you know, her mental health, effectively. And she was using drink as the...
escapism.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, I talked about this on the unveiling with me, and drink. It didn't, you know, it wasn't, well, it was out of control, but it wasn't out of control, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's anyone that's got any addiction, gambling, drugs, drink, it's difficult to find the inspiration, the energy to stop where you're going, to turn it around.
Yeah.
And everyone that I've spoken to on these things, there's a common factor about how tired you feel.
Yeah.
How you want to socialise, but you don't want to socialise. You want to go out, but you don't want to go out. And getting yourself into a state where you can go out on. And some of the times, you know, I've had people say to me they couldn't get out of bed. Unfortunately, I never had that. But it is problematic for people. And sometimes some people just can't find that energy or that inspiration to stop, to start, to go back.
Yeah. And it's only now, I think, looking back and reflecting, that I understand from a different perspective. I know she's now at peace, you know, where she is.
And if she was a troubled soul, that is, and she takes the strain off of her, because she would have seen the hurt that she caused you, your sisters, and your mum, your dad, friends.
Yeah, and I said it to you before. It's like I've been working on my own, you know, well-being for the last, I'd say, 6 years.
Yep.
But it's through me being inspecting, sort of seeing my sister's struggles over the years, you know. She suffered from anxiety immensely, and she used alcohol to sort of numb
the pain.
Yeah. So I've always been aware of it, and I think it's just kind of made me, you know, we was on that journey with her.
Yeah.
And it made me look more
at yourself a little bit deeper.
Yeah, go inside a bit more and sort of find out who's the real me, you know. Like, I realised that I was worrying a lot, and you know, we had a lot to worry about. You know, always worrying about my mum and dad, having to worry about things and stuff like that. And you know, I realised, life isn't. I don't want to live a life where I worry all the time.
No, and it's. I mean, I have anxiety for sure. You know, way down here today. I was talking to Coral, the production manager of the podcast, and I said, you know what, today is what I'm not feeling tip-top. You know, I'm not on my game today. And it's interesting, when we've had some sports people on, and we've got some wonderful sports people coming up in future podcasts. And one of the things I say, you know, I'll be asking, how did you deal with it? Because if there's somebody out there that's listening, maybe something they say, because we all find different triggers to get us going. I mean, you mentioned running. You know, it's something for you.
That's like my coping mechanism. You know, exercise. It sort of makes me feel good. It releases those endorphins, and it really gets I just find I'm a lot more focused when I'm managing to fit my exercise in my routine. But it's, everyone has their own different triggers. Some people just don't. For me, my trigger was, I actually had a panic attack back in 2017. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just couldn't breathe.
Right.
My husband called an ambulance, you know, and I thought, I had no idea what was wrong with me. And that was the moment that I realised, my God, I must have real anxiety issues here. Like, my worrying must be over the top.
So you went to hospital and they said, well, look, the great news is there's nothing wrong with you.
Well, the ambulance came and they basically said, you're having a panic attack. And I couldn't talk at the time. But they gave me a breathing technique to try and calm myself down. And that was the realisation that, oh my God, I'm suffering from anxiety here. Like, I need to
do something about it.
I need to do something about it.
And that's the point, really, isn't it? It's that there by the grace of God go I kind of thing. Something triggered you to say, well, hold on, I'm sitting in this ambulance. There's effectively nothing wrong with me other than I've had a panic attack. But your state of mind, even though it was all over the shop, was in a position to allow you to say, I've got to do something about this.
Yeah. And I knew, I could see my sister's struggles. I didn't want to go down that same path. I knew that I've always been quite mentally strong. Like, as a child, I was so strong-willed. There's no way I could be persuaded to do anything that I didn't want to do. And I'm still like that now. Like, you couldn't make me do anything I don't want to do. So I think that I knew deep down that, hang on, there's more to life than worrying. Surely I'm a designer. I can design my life, like, surely.
Yeah.
And so I just started to really I read loads of books on mindset and asking myself questions like, who am I? Because if you ask, oh, who are you?
Yeah.
My name's Samantha. I'm an interior designer. I'm a mum. I'm a wife. But I realised, no, they're just roles that I take on.
Absolutely.
I'm actually more than that. And it's realising who I am and what my values are, what my real values are, not what values I think I should have because how I've been conditioned to believe, It was a journey, and I'm still on that journey.
I don't think I think once you go on the journey doesn't stop.
No.
But you're on the journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key part. I use analogies. You was at the bus stop, you've got on the bus, and that journey continues. You're going to get off the bus sometimes, but you've got to get back on it.
Yeah.
And talking about buses, what's your husband called? Craig, I've got some advice for Craig. He can't get the bus when he runs the marathon.
Okay.
He's got to run it. I give him some tips. Has he done one before?
No, this will be his first.
Right,
yeah.
So give him some tips from my marathons. Get his name on his running vest.
Yeah.
Make sure he puts Vaseline on every bit of his body, even places he doesn't know exist, because I am telling you, at the end of that, he will know that there are places that he's got things he didn't know.
Okay.
In all the crevices, get the Vaseline on.
Yep.
Don't wear new shoes. The amount of people you see in a marathon turn up with a new pair of ASIC trainers and you think, wow, wear shoes that he's trained in.
Yep.
Run by the side of the crowd. Keep close to the crowd. They will see your name. The crowds at the London Marathon are the best in the world. I've done New York, I've done Chicago.
It's amazing.
There'll be over 1 million people on the street. They are Londoners. I mean, I'm a proud Londoner.
Yeah.
I know that it's not just Londoners turn out, but you'll find, I mean, especially around the Isle of Dogs and places like that, the crowd are fantastic. So old running gear, name on the front, Vaseline. Don't drink loads of energy drinks. That Lucozade might look interesting, but stick to water and enjoy it. Yeah. Just enjoy it. And I can tell that you've got a good grounding. Your parents have obviously done an amazing job with you in the past. I wish you well.
Thank you.
With your ongoing situation. Please send my love to both sets of families. Mm-hmm. I know how hard it is to do a marathon, the training, the running, that. We just arranged something. So this is our first. So we have here our very first Blighty Talks Bricks check.
Oh.
And we're going to present this to you to give to Craig.
Thank you.
It's only a small donation. It comes with our love. We'll be thinking of him on the day. No, don't. It's okay. Breathe. You've got to breathe. Remember breathing. Don't go having a panic attack. So this is for Craig. We'll give you this with our love. Wish him well.
Thank you so much.
And Samantha, I could sit and talk to you all day long. You know, there's so many things we have in common, particularly Arsenal. But it's been lovely to have you on Blighty Talks Bricks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm just going to leave you with the fact that you have someone sitting here that's gone through trauma. It would seem that both families are dealing with that and have turned it round to the benefit. And that just goes to show that you can do it. They've done it, so we can do it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed your time.
Thank you so much for having me.